right, we're going to start your exam now. You might feel a little pressure. Okay?
Oh, what's that?
It looks like Frogger Advanced. Now let's keep moving.
Doctor?
Oh, that's fine, nurse. That's just Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now, moving along.
Yeah.
Hey, is that Spider-Man?
Game Boy Advance, more games, more fun. Rated E for everyone.
Have you seen my shorts?
Good evening and welcome to Redemption Arc. I am your host, Cheston, here with one and only Derek.
Howdy ho.
Hey, Derek, happy birthday.
Happy birthday? To me?
Yeah. Isn't it weird that you share a birthday with a Game Boy Advance?
Yeah, it is extremely weird.
And you share the birth year, too.
Yeah?
You're
2001?
Yeah, you're both 20 years old.
Wow.
Why are you drinking? That's not legal. Put that away.
Yeah, I'm way off base here.
Yeah. Is that a 4 Loco?
It's a 5 Loco. They added caffeine to it.
God. They added it back?
Yeah, we're back, baby.
Man, those monsters. I can't believe they chose that name and not like New 4 Loco Plus.
I know. Or
do they even know how to name revisions?
the 4 Loco Micro.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, Derek, since you're sharing your birthday with the Game Boy Advance, I'm afraid we're not going to do a birthday special for you. I thought we'd do a birthday special for the Game Boy Advance.
That's a damn shame. I had Dragon Ball Z games I was ready to talk about, but I guess
the Game Boy Advance had Dragon Ball Z games.
Oh, boy, did it ever.
We could talk about Legacy of Goku.
Yeah, Legacy of Goku 2,
finished it.
Boo's Fury,
yeah.
All sorts of fun games.
I finished that game with a
Somehow.
long play count, and I finished every boss fight with like 2 hits because I got stuck and had to grind the same enemy over and over for hours. And as a kid, I was patient enough to do that.
Yeah, I remember you going around punching dogs all day.
Yeah, it was pretty much that. That's just like in the anime, actually. So, A+ for authenticity. Anyways, we're going to take a few trips down memory lane to celebrate the Game Boy's anniversary, and I was trying to think, how could we do that? And there's plenty of content out there on the web where folks are ranking their favorite Game Boy Advance games, but I don't know, that felt a little cliche for me. Not that we haven't ranked things before, but I mean, we already know the best Game Boy Advance game, and it's Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, so do we really need to have a podcast about that?
Well, that's not true. It's
Okay.
Mother 3, but...
Well, at least we can all agree it's not Golden Sun.
No, it's not. It's not Golden Sun.
Exactly.
I spit on Golden Sun fans, as I have
Yes,
said before.
and I will join you in the spitting. Yeah, take that, Golden Sun.
We don't like
Lost
Isaac around
Age.
these parts.
Yeah, that's right. I hope Dark Dawn is the future model for the rest of the franchise.
Play Lunar Silver Star Story on the Game Boy Advance. There's your RPG.
Yeah, that's actually an alright game.
Yeah, I know.
A weird edit of the original, but whatever. So I thought, how could we do this? And what came to my mind as I was trying to brainstorm a way to celebrate this anniversary is I thought about the Game Boy Micro and what a stupid device it was. And then I thought about the Game Boy Advance SP, which is not a stupid device, but has some really stupid problems. And then I started to think, you know what? The Game Boy Advance was where Nintendo really started to go nuts with their hardware in a few ways. The first way is that they released hardware that is just objectively broken, which the Game Boy Advance was. If you didn't have a Game Boy Advance, I'll remind you that the screen was darn near impossible to see.
It was not backlit.
It was not backlit, frontlit, no kind of lighting, really. It was just, you were hopeful to have a lamp nearby at all times, or, God forbid, a worm light, if you were that desperate. So they released this console that was fatally flawed, and to fix that, they released a series of revisions. And each of these revisions was also flawed in some kind of dramatic way. And this set the precedent going forward that Nintendo would always, almost like they're trying to recreate the myth of Achilles, create these seemingly wonderful pieces of hardware, but also damage them in such a way that you can't look at them without having a little bit of hesitance about fully embracing them. That goes for every revision, including the ones that people really love. I think we can agree that all of these handhelds that Nintendo has released are borked in one way or another.
Most likely. I think my top two might not be so borked, but we'll see.
Right, so our focus today, instead of looking at an individual game or an individual E3 press conference, we're going to look at the entire history of Nintendo portable revisions for their hardware, and we are going to rank them using a ranked choice voting system. So to make this focus a little more clear, a few things that are going to make our lives easier. The first thing is that this is only, as I said, portable. This is only the portable revisions. If you look at the home console revisions that Nintendo has done, overall they're not super interesting or weird. Like on the NES and SNES, they were just like to get more people to buy those at the tail end of their life for a cheaper
Talking about
price.
the top loader for the NES and
right, and then the
whatever
SNES,
the hell the SNES
yeah,
was.
the SNES just had like a weird, like Frieza-looking console.
It was a smaller looking thing.
Yeah, and it was cheaper, and it was to get people like, hey, look, Donkey Kong Country 3, come on.
It reminded me of the PS1 revision of the PlayStation.
Right. So, those hardware revisions aren't super interesting. The only one that is even worth talking about really is the Wii, which had a terrible revision that took out the GameCube backwards compatibility,
And the internet too.
Yeah, it's what I like to call a broken Wii because it doesn't have the feature that lets you play actual games on it. So, anyways, another thing that's going to make our lives easier, because last time we ranked something, we ranked Mario games, and we tried to agree on an objective list, and there is not much that Derek and I agree on exactly. So
I don't know. Our top 6 was pretty close.
True, but then within that top 6 we had some quibbling. So to prevent that from happening, and also just to create a little more suspense and excitement, we're going to use a ranked choice system using the numbers 1 through 11. For each of these portable revisions, we're going to go through, and after we talk a little bit about them, we're going to assign them each a number, 11 being the most points we can give, which would mean it's our favorite of the portables we talk about, and the lower score meaning that we like it less. And at the end, I'll put Derek's and my scores together, and we will determine the best of these bad revisions and the worst of them. The best of them, we will, send flowers or something. And the worst of them, I will have to buy and put on a shelf. And I really hope that some of these don't win, because some of these are kind of expensive.
Yes. Well, I have given Andrew Yang my 11 points. So.
Oh, that's good. That's good. He really needs to pick up some slack.
Yes, he didn't do so well in ranked choice, so I got to have his back.
Oh, boy, the only thing more dated than these platforms will be this podcast in 2 years.
Absolutely.
Who is Andrew Yang? Is that wrestler who wore the cowboy hat?
Wow. Now, you want to date it.
He's your boy. Yeehaw!
Yeah. Yeehaw!
The New York Cowboy. Okay. Well, we're going to run through these portables in chronological order, and they're kind of split into sections because each of them iterates on a different platform. So, chronologically speaking, we start, of course, with the original Game Boy. Everyone is familiar with the original Game Boy. It's tough as a tank. It survived the Gulf War. There's that famous one that was bombed to smithereens.
It survived my washing machine many times.
Did it really?
Oh, yeah. All the time. Pokemon Blue went through the washing machine at least 3 times.
Dang. Okay, so it's a beast of a platform. Also, just enormous, portable in only the loosest sense of the word. If you had a bag, this would take up at least half of it. So, obviously, was a need for revising. And Japan got a few more revisions than America did, but we're going to focus on North American releases, which means that we start with the Game Boy Pocket. So the Game Boy Pocket is, as it sounds, it's a Game Boy that is designed to fit in your pocket. It's kind of small. It was released several years after the original Game Boy, and really it didn't do too much else but make it smaller. It did change out the screen to allow it to look a little less like pea soup and a little more like, I don't know, shit soup, to be honest. But hey, it was slightly better looking.
Yeah.
Still monochromatic, which would be revised later, but we'll get to that. So, Derek, I don't, I don't know too much about. I don't have a lot of personal experience with the Game Boy Pocket, I should say. I have a lot of experience with pretty much everything else on this list. And I was asking you before if you've ever seen one in person. You said you have indeed seen one in person. So,
Yeah.
tell me about it.
Well, in middle school during the Pokemon craze, I think Pokemon hit slightly before the Game Boy Color, so I had lots of people in school that had Game Boy Pockets that they'd bring them to school. And if you're taking a Game Boy to school, the big bulky one is kind of hard to sneak around. I know I got caught with the big brick a couple times.
Did you try and put it in your pocket?
No, I'm an idiot, so I had my Game Boy case that I just carried around, and people would ask me what's in it, and they're like, I don't know, pencils or something, and I never got called out on it, which is very strange.
What you should have done is put it in a brown paper bag.
I know. Well, it started trying to drink out of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would have loved that.
Hey, wait a minute. You got to drink that in the cafeteria, bud.
If you're sneaking around playing Pokemon, this was the ideal for children. The big drawbacks of the Game Boy are still nobody had link cables. So, except for one kid, so that one kid got more popularity than he deserved.
I remember using a link cable feeling like, it was one of those things when you'd read magazine previews, and you'd be like, oh, that's never going to happen in real life. And then when you actually do it, it's like, man, this is like make-believe.
Yeah, we got one at some point, but it was into the GBA, I believe.
We did, but it was such a pain to pull out, too. I feel like we hardly used it.
But I mean, I had a couple friends that had them, so I came over and traded Pokemon and all that junk, and did battling on the bus, that sort of thing.
Was it actually pocket-sized?
Oh yeah, it fit into kids' pockets, which I imagine is a demographic.
Okay, like cargo shorts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Jeans?
But I mean, probably, but I didn't have one, so I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
It still has the crappy screen, which is the Game Boy staple until the SP, and batteries, which again, Game Boy staple until the SP.
But another thing it did was it only required 2.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, so it only required 2, which is a big improvement. I think the original required 4, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Seems pretty standard for the time, unlike the Game Gear, which I think needed 8.
Yes, but the Game Gear also, I believe, was backlit.
Yes, but
it was definitely color. Well, yes, the cost was the batteries lasted 2 minutes.
Did you really want to see Sonic Triple Trouble?
I wanted to see Garfield caught in the act.
Oh.
But
Caught in the Act of
2. That's what the game was called. I don't know what you want from me.
Gross.
But yeah, I as a kid I thought it was neat, but ultimately I had no use for one because my regular Game Boy was a brick, worked fine.
This will become a trend as we go on, but I will say of all the people I've ever known, nobody has stuck with the original versions of portable hardware more than you.
Yeah, I refused to upgrade.
You're not adverse to upgrading. You had a PS4 Pro. You obviously don't have a problem with slightly frivolous upgrades, and yet you had that original Game Boy for a long ass time.
Yeah, until the Game Boy Color.
But I had my Game Boy Color before you.
You did. I think I waited a long time.
Yeah, you were a holdout, and you continue to be one. So we can get into that one, which we have much more to say about. Derek, what would you give the Game Boy Pocket?
Well, Game Boy Pocket got 3 points from me.
Okay, that seems like a fair assessment. I gave the Game Boy Pocket 4 points.
Well, look at you.
I know. I have barely even seen one, and I gave it more points than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
this is going great.
It's just I didn't see a purpose for it. That's all.
Yeah. No. That kind of everything. Well, actually, it's not entirely true. I was gonna
And
say
to be
everything
fair,
below this, I say the same about, but not
and
exactly.
and to be fair, look, I'm on a video game podcast, so obviously I'm slightly heavier than most folks. So I had no problem putting a big old fat Game Boy in my pants. So there was no need for a Game Boy Pocket.
Uh, yeah. Well, good thing you had the brown paper bag.
Yeah, that's
That's
right.
all I'll say.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the Game Boy Pocket. I'm gonna shove that one into my back pocket and move on to a system that I think also could fit in pockets, which kind of made the Game Boy Pocket seem silly. 2 years later, they would release the Game Boy Color, which does exactly what it sounds like. It was a system that allowed you to play games in colors other than black and white. You know, red, blue, green, whatever colors you may like. The Game Boy Color is weird. It's weird because including it on this list could be seen as controversial. Some people consider it as its own dedicated platform.
But if people see it that way, then you can't include the new 3DS either, which I absolutely consider the same thing.
Right.
So,
and so you're on the same page with me that the Game Boy Color is just a revision of the Game Boy.
yes, there are exclusive games, but I don't think there's enough good exclusive games for it to be a big issue.
Certainly not. No, it's
The most obvious one is Pokemon Crystal.
Yes, which I had. It also did upgrade some previous Game Boy games, not just the ones that they deliberately ported, like Link's Awakening, but also, I think, because I got mine with Pokemon Red, and I believe that it made all of the sprites red. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay.
It did.
So obviously I'm a little biased towards the Game Boy Color because it's my first ever game system that was just mine. I got it with Pokemon Red and some Pac-Man collection for my birthday. I'll never forget it. My parents hid it in a drawer, and it was like my one more thing, the Nintendo Direct of birthday surprises. And I pulled it out and saw Pokemon Red, and the other memory I have of the Game Boy Color is that you told me I would get a seizure from playing it.
Wow, I was a jerk.
I don't know where you got that from.
Why would I say that?
You were probably jealous that I had the Color Game Boy and you still had your OG model.
That's probably right.
So I'll say the Game Boy Color, even though I have a little bias towards it, I also kind of don't like it that much for a few reasons. We're sticking mostly to hardware issues, so I won't go into like software.
I think you have to at some point for some of these.
For some of these, we can go into it a little bit. I guess if I had to say on that here, the colors they use are kind of gaudy. Like if you look back at some of these Game Boy Color games from the time, they are just not really pleasant to look at. And part of it's because the hardware is still pretty much Game Boy hardware, with a slight tweak up here and there. But also they use some really garish colors, and I think the reason I've heard is that because the screen didn't have a backlight, you needed to use certain colors to make those colors pop a little better to be more visible. And the result is a lot of games that when they're taken out of their context, or even when they're in their context, they're just kind of not super pleasant to look at.
No, but I think it's a Game Boy problem.
It is generally a Game Boy problem. I guess the other problem I would have with the Game Boy Color is that it just seems kind of, again, a little pointless.
Not to me.
Ways. No?
I look at it like, the Super Game Boy was out around this time, so a lot of Game Boy games were put in the color, like I think like Donkey Kong was, if you played it on the Super Game Boy. So in a way, this was your chance to play those games in color portably. And I think there is a reason for that. And also, like, having a colored system makes a difference. Like, it feels like you're playing something a little more advanced. So it did feel like a necessary upgrade. Like, if you play Pokemon Crystal and, like, go back to Silver, it does feel like a big upgrade because you can actually kind of see colors. So,
in hindsight, for me, it's just one of those things where it only predates the Game Boy Advance by a few years. And it seems to me clear like it was their way of being like, okay, we're not quite ready. We're working on this other big project, but it's not ready for the limelight. Can we squeeze something out that gets people to give us more money, and maybe makes them realize, prevents them from realizing that they are playing on damn near 10-year-old hardware. That's kind of where I'm at with the Game Boy Color, personally. Um,
I suppose. I think it does breathe new life into a bunch of old games.
it did.
So I can appreciate it for that. It's
Yeah.
like when you play backwards compatible like PS4 games on PS5. Like they run better sometimes, so it makes you revisit some things you might not have been thinking about
Yeah.
revisiting.
I suppose I'm harsh on it, but it might be just be my general disinterest in the Game Boy line previous to the Game Boy Advance. Even though it was my first portable, those platforms that go way, way back, something about their form factor, I didn't really like the way they felt. And like if I go back and play one now and held one now, I would feel very uncomfortable, very scrunched, especially with the color and pocket. They're very narrow.
Well, I don't think original Game Boy games have aged particularly well.
No.
I only think there are a handful of games I would consider classics, and even like the Mario games that are on there, I don't think are great Mario games. So it's it's tough.
I will say for the Game Boy Color that it is very sturdy. I remember finding mine years ago in a box somewhere and starting up, I think, a game of Tetris. And, I was delighted to find that it was actually pretty much worked just as well as it did when I was the young one.
There was a derecho in Southern Illinois, I think in like 2008 or something like that, and we had no power for a couple days, and we ended up like fleeing the state to get power.
Mm-hmm.
But before then, I played your old purple Game Boy Color. I played Pokemon Red on that with a backlight.
Oh, did you really?
Yes, and it worked just fine.
Yeah. No, it held up. It kept ticking. Took a licking and kept on ticking.
Yeah, it sure did.
Yeah, so I think my point's gonna skew lower than you on this one. I gave this a 5.
I gave this a 7.
Okay, that's not too far off. But
It's not too far off, but it's top 5.
Yeah.
So
that's it for the Game Boy. Of course, Japan got the Game Boy Light, but we're not from Japan, so can't do much about that one. If only. The Game Boy Light seems pretty slick. So that gets us to the Game Boy Advance. The Game Boy Advance, of course, is the one that's celebrating its 20th birthday, much like Derek. The Game Boy Advance is better known as the portable Super Nintendo, because that's basically what it was. A lot of ports of Super Nintendo games, which isn't a bad thing by any means. The bad thing about the Game Boy Advance was that it is, again, almost impossible to see. It's funny to me that they released a game for it, Boktai, a Hideo Kojima joint, that tried to get you out into the greatest source of light possible.
Where you can't see it at all.
Right, because the hardware is such that, it's a nightmare.
Well, yeah, like at least with the original Game Boy, you could like mess with the brightness on it, so you could theoretically see in really hard to see places, but that was not an option on the Game Boy Advance.
No. So, despite being better than its predecessors in so many ways, the Game Boy Advance was desperately in need of revising. And the first revision is one of the most famous revisions of all, one of the most beloved, which is the Game Boy Advance SP. I got this for Christmas, and this is one of those things where I was a pretty big, still am, a pretty big Nintendo fanboy. And one of the worst things about being a Nintendo fanboy is sometimes you just get things and you don't even really want them.
E-reader.
Right. I had an e-reader. I thought I wanted it. And looking back, I really don't understand the whole gimmick at all. You just put it on a cartridge. But nonetheless, I remember asking for a Game Boy Advance SP, but I didn't really have like a solid reason. I didn't really know anything about it. I just thought that, it was the new Game Boy. And I knew a friend who had it, and I thought, okay, I guess, I don't know, maybe, let's give it a whirl. And so I did get one for Christmas, and it was absolutely a night and day difference between this and the original Game Boy Advance in pretty much every way. Everybody knows about the light solution that made it possible to see the screen, which is obviously amazing. You could play it in the dark, which was a brand new thing, so it took the portability to a whole new level. Personally, what I think is the best about the SP, and what really blew my mind when I got one, was that it didn't have traditional batteries.
That was great.
Yeah, you charged it, which, Microsoft controllers still to this day, you have to put batteries in. And, it's crazy to me because the SP is so old at this point, over a decade and a half old. And when I got rid of batteries then, it was like the future was there for me. Derek,
Yeah.
I don't remember. Did you have an SP?
No, I think I ended up getting yours at some point way down the road, but I never owned one because I was like, why do I need this new system? My Game Boy Advance works fine. And in hindsight, that was a silly thing because the SP is a gigantic upgrade. The only true fault of the SP is the lack of a headphone jack.
Well, there's really two things I'd fault. I'd say the headphone jack. It's funny because the headphone solution was very much like the Switch's voice. Yeah, I don't know if you remember when they were doing the rollout for Switch Online and they were showing how you could do voice chat in Splatoon.
Oh, I remember
and
that.
They had this crazy contraption, and that's kind of what the SP would require you to do. I think the other thing I would say with the SP is that the layout of it, the more Game Boy Color, Game Boy Pocket style vertical layout is very cramped. And the original Game Boy Advance is super comfortable. It's like a game controller, and the SP is not.
I don't know if I agree. I think the SP always felt fine in my hands.
Well, I mean, I generally agree. It's like a real nitpick. I just prefer the way the Advance is laid out.
I think the Game Boy Advance kind of looks like a toy, whereas the SP looks like a piece of technology.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
So if I'm like playing something in public, I would vastly prefer to play an SP to a original Game Boy.
You have never cared about this.
Well, I know, but I'm saying if I was someone that did care about it.
Yeah. Well, the SP is beautiful. It looks like a makeup case.
Yeah, it's very modern looking.
Yeah, if you were to fold one up, nobody would know any better. And the folding up is kind of crazy. It was the first Nintendo portable to use that clamshell. Well,
like
at least first post Game Boy era first Game Boy era portable to use that foldable style. And I mean, in terms of being portable, it's hard to get more portable than that. It makes it into a little tidy square. You could pop that into any normal size pocket and go. So that was pretty great. As a kid, having that was a real game changer for road trips. I could just pop it in when we got in the car, and then if I needed, if I popped it out to play a game, and then say we stop at McDonald's or something, I'd just put it right back in and then pick up where I left off. It was really just an all-around ace in the hole, other than the stupid thing with the headphone jack and maybe my little quibble about the vertical layout of it. But I mean, otherwise,
what I would have pointed out is that when you put a Game Boy like original game into it, it juts out of the system.
It does. It sticks out. It's kind of gross.
Which is another thing they'll come back for another revision down the road.
Yeah, so interesting enough, I actually played an SP really recently. A student at a school that I work at brought his SP in, of all things, with Tetris, and so of course I said I needed to play it because I hadn't held one in a very long time. And I was just kind of taken aback by the way that cartridge jutted out facing me. It felt like I was playing a Dreamcast with the cables facing my direction, which is not something that I very much like. I guess it helped you see what game you were playing. So that's neat, I guess. I don't know. It is a weird design issue with it, but really other than that, I mean, it's really hard to poke holes in this. Unless you want to talk about the Tribal Tattoo Game Boy Advance SP.
With Mario.
Which is strange, and I don't know how to describe it, but...
well, that's just like a special.
Yeah, it was
concept.
a weird special edition. There were so many special editions of the SP, because it was a really great device, And
It was cool.
I loved it, and I gave this a very high score. I gave this a 10.
I gave this a 9.
A 9, okay. So I figured that would come in pretty high, because it's really hard to say anything bad about the SP. On the other hand, it's really not hard to say much bad about the Game Boy Micro. What do you think about the Game Boy Micro, Derek?
I think it is pointless, but it looks really cool.
It does.
Yeah, it seems like something that if I was a hobbyist collector sort of person, I guess I am a hobbyist, but if I was a collector, I would probably want this just because it looks really neat. Which, hey, it's good for that. Very portable. I don't think it's backwards compatible.
You are correct.
So that is a fault of it. But, even though I personally wouldn't own one, I think they're neat little devices.
So I should back up and say that the whole conception of the Game Boy Micro is pretty interesting, because it was basically like a design idea in Nintendo. How small could they get a Game Boy? And so they did. And there it was.
Very small.
It's very small. And it is, like you said, very good looking. I would love to have one on a shelf if they weren't so gosh darned expensive on the internet. They are very pricey to come by, which is probably because it's sold like dirt. Because at this point, the Game Boy Advance was old news.
I think the DS was already out.
Right. The SP was far superior in every way. The Micro couldn't play Game Boy Color games, so there was really no benefit to getting a Micro unless you were in the very, very small user base that absolutely needed something that was like the size of an ant to get you through your commute. And I will tell you, there was a portion of my life, like I said, fanboy here, I just thought, man, I really need a Micro because then I could take it on the bus with me. But I don't know what I was thinking, because the SP would totally fit in my pants to get on a bus.
Yes.
So
I look at this as more of like a hardcore collector's item than like a true revision.
Yeah. I did like that it had the big thing about it was that it had interchangeable faceplates.
Yes.
Which I think was cool. I think the only other console that I can think of that actually did that is the Xbox 360. But I never, ever, ever saw anybody who replaced their faceplate of that. I also never saw anybody who had owned a Game Boy Micro. So I guess that comment about the Xbox can just be thrown out into the ether. It makes no sense.
I knew a person or two with a Micro.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Were they sad?
No.
Did they ever pop like Pokemon Crystal into it and go,
no, it doesn't work. No, it never happened.
No, they were too busy playing Donkey Kong King of Swing.
Yes.
Everybody's favorite, whatever the hell that game is categorized as.
Mario Kart
Is it a
Advanced Circuit.
platformer? Mario Kart
probably,
Super Circuit?
Yeah, or Advanced Circuit, I mean.
Whatever it is. That's an okay game.
Yeah.
Did the Game Boy Micro have shoulder buttons? Because the Game Boy Advance had shoulder buttons, so the Micro
had
have
to.
to. Where were they?
That's
Where did they
the
hide
mystery of the system. So small.
Also, they call it the Game Boy Micro, not the Game Boy Advance Micro.
Well, see,
confusing.
that is confusing because it should be backwards compatible if
Right.
it's being called that.
It isn't.
So.
But I think this would be a cool system to boot up, like, I don't know, Link to the Past on, to be like, hey man, look how small Link to the Past can get. And then you would just put it away forever and ever. On your shelf.
Yeah. So as a result, it's kind of middle of the road for me because it would be cool to own, but I'm not spending $1 billion for it.
Yeah. So what'd you
So
get?
I have it as a
point?
6.
Wow.
Oh.
I put it at a 1.
Wow.
Yeah, I think this is easily the most
You're a hater.
fruitless piece of hardware Nintendo has produced this side of like the Virtual Boy.
The internet's gonna hate you for
I
the
guess.
Game Boy Micro is a beloved system.
I think that it is stupid.
Fair enough.
I think it's stupid and that Nintendo was dumb to release it, and I think they would probably agree with me.
I don't think I think this is like a collector's item. Like I don't think it was made in huge
But
quantities.
nobody bought it.
Because I don't think they like printed a bunch of them.
I saw them
think
on
it was,
store shelves.
Well, I know, but I think that like it was like a limited run thing. Like it wasn't intended to be like a big seller.
Well, yeah, I guess.
I,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I look at it as like as a cool collector's device. So, and I think it served its purpose because the people that wanted it. So,
I guess, but to me, it's a broken Game Boy
I suppose
because it doesn't play. It's called a Game Boy Micro, and it doesn't play Game Boy. If you pop Mario Land 2 in there, you know what happens? Nothing.
I just think they look cool.
Yeah, they do look cool. That I will give it. But way cooler than that is the Nintendo DS. Now, let me tell you about the Nintendo DS. Ugliest video game system ever released. Looks like a prototype that snuck out of the R&D lab and then somehow got mass produced and ended up on store shelves and also ended up being one of the most successful things I ever made. Period.
Yes.
Derek, you had your original DS for freaking ever.
I had it through until the 3DS, actually.
Yeah, I cannot for the life of me determine how in the world you made do with that, because that is an atrociously designed system.
It worked for me. I don't know what you want.
It worked, and it was sturdy as all get out because, again, it looked like a lab experiment that just broke out.
I'm pretty sure Elite Beat Agents broke my screen, but I just kept powering through it.
Who among us didn't have their screen broken by Elite Beat Agents?
Yeah, that wheel is a killer.
Yeah, so the DS, because it was so ugly, and really more so because it was so popular, like truly just a instant success, Nintendo, of course, had to capitalize and get some people to double dip, and I might have been one of those people. And they did that with the DS Lite, a beautiful piece of hardware that takes the hideous nature of the Nintendo DS, shrinks it into a more comfortable form factor that doesn't look so bad on a shelf or anywhere. It looks pretty solid. Even to this day, when I see them in public, I think, oh, that looks pretty alright. That said, it doesn't really do much to improve the platform. I think the screens are brighter, which, take it or leave it.
I don't know if I agree. I think it is way more handheld. The original DS is.
I said a better form factor.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, okay. Well, it's like so much smaller.
It is dramatically smaller.
And it was like way less ugly looking. Like
Absolutely.
I think the DS is like an incredible system, and this takes all the problems I had with it and just fixes it.
Yeah.
I don't know if the screens are any bigger. I doubt it, but
not bigger, but I think they are brighter and of a higher quality slightly.
But like if you look at the real estate on the original DS, like we're talking like so much wasted space and for tiny screens. So
you know what really bothered me about the DS Lite was that they switched the location of the stylus.
That is annoying, but I don't know, like I feel like the way the stylus goes into it, it's more aesthetically pleasing.
It is. It is. It did feel pleasing to pop that in and out of that DS Lite.
Like I got a DS Lite eventually. I think I ended up getting yours around when the 3DS came out, and I thought it was a great system. So
I think the most interesting thing about the DS Lite is that, much like the Game Boy Advance SP, the Game Boy games that were inserted into its bottom slot stuck out.
Yes,
of course,
the Game Boy Advance games.
Yeah, Game Boy Advance. It couldn't play Game Boy Color or Game Boy, but it could play Game Boy, or could it? It couldn't, could it?
No, it couldn't.
No, it could not. Okay. So yeah, the Game Boy Advance games would stick out of it, and their solution to this, for when you didn't have a Game Boy Advance game in that slot, was this little, I don't know what to call it other than a butt
I say
plug.
Like a placeholder. Butt plug.
Yeah, it's basically a big old butt plug for your DS. You just pop it in there, and then there it is.
It plugs the butt.
Yeah. It makes your system look better, but it is functionally useless. So, fun little tidbit there. I never lost mine. Apparently this is the thing that people always lost. But I didn't, because I really treasured the way it made my DS Lite look. The only other thing I'd say about the DS Lite is that I thought that the D-pad felt bad. I felt like the DS, the original DS, for as ugly as it was, because it was so hideous and it was all function over form, I felt like all the buttons were a little more responsive and just better.
Again, I had no problem with the D-pad.
No, but the light kind of shrunk things down to make it better, and I think that made the buttons a little less comfortable for my liking.
I got Donkey Kong-esque hands, and I was able to handle it.
That said, I did really like the DS Lite, so I gave it an 8.
I gave it a 10.
Really? 10? Nice. I'm
I
surprised
think it
was
is a
that high for you.
top-tier system.
I mean, I generally agree with you.
As I said, it addressed all my problems with the original DS.
I think if you were to ask people like about the DS, they would talk about the DS Lite. Like, I think most people don't even remember that original model. I have almost never seen one.
I'm pretty sure we have. I'm pretty sure we have one here, the original model. So.
Yeah, but you hold on to that because you must be like the only people in the world.
Where proof it exists.
Yeah, you are the proof in the pudding. And it's a shame that you don't have this next one, because I think this is another one that's kind of a weird one that you don't see people talk about, or you certainly didn't. I feel like you didn't know a lot of people who would own this one because it's a weird one. And that is the DSi, and I've lumped it in with the DSi XL mostly because they're pretty much the same other than screen size, which I'll contradict here in a little bit, but hey, I got my problems. So what the DSi was it was a DSi, lowercase I. This was like Nintendo's swing at making a smarter device. I kind of think of this as like a beta test for the 3DS because it had online functionality. You could download games, you had external and internal storage, it had a camera, if you were so inclined. Couldn't play Game Boy Advance games.
Yep. That hurt it for me.
Yeah, it kind of does the same thing for me that it does for the Micro, which is it makes me immediately... I remember at the time seeing it and seeing ads and thinking, wow, this is a really beautiful looking device. And the online stuff sounds really cool, but I really do like being able to pop in, like, I don't know, Pokemon Sapphire,
WarioWare,
Mario Luigi Superstar Saga, WarioWare, and just play it. But you couldn't do that on the DSi, and in exchange you could play My Notebook.
And you can have 2 cameras.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, I didn't own one, and I've only really seen, like, 2 or 3 of these ever in my life. I actually saw someone bring a DSi XL to a wrestling show. They had it in the front row and they were using it as a camera, which probably is the only time that camera was ever actually used.
I think WarioWare DIY probably got some use out of it.
Almost certainly. This is really just, I think, a questionable device because it only predates the 3DS by a little bit, and it basically breaks the DS by getting rid of the Game Boy port and doesn't quite achieve the heights of the 3DS because the virtual store is lacking, to say the least.
Yes, I have seen someone play the DSi XL in person. I thought it was really big, and
it's quite big.
I don't know, it brought new life to the DS games, but that lack of GBA support kills me, and I don't think there was a single good DSi exclusive thing, unless you count WarioWare DIY. But it's a rough one for me.
I did love the looks of it.
Oh yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, and I really liked the colors they used for the XL. They had a burgundy color that I still think is really slick.
But see, I stuck with my fat DS for so long. Aesthetics clearly is not my be-all, end-all. So the fact is, it doesn't play GBA games. It's just hard.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine ever getting a DSi for that reason. Like, even like nowadays, every once in a while I think, gosh, I should have a DSi because they're really cool. And then I think, but why would I want that? Because I could just get a DS Lite, which is also cool and isn't busted. But that's, neither here nor there. It's probably the best way to play DS games, but also coincidentally, one of the worst ways to play Game Boy Advance games because it doesn't play them. So
it can play Pokemon Conquest really nicely.
That it can, and you and the other 3 people who played that should maybe get a DSi and hang out.
Get together, yeah.
Yeah. So I gave the DSi and the XL a 2.
I gave it a 4.
Yeah. Pretty.
Not my cup of tea.
No, definitely not our cups of tea. And I think, actually, I was surprised that these sold fairly well, but I think that more speaks to the fact that the DS was an unstoppable monster, and everybody you knew had one, so it just was a given that these would sell gangbusters. Yeah, but nonetheless, so I think this is a good point to take a little breather here, because after this, Nintendo goes absolutely bananas with their next portable, the 3DS, which had easily the most revisions of probably any system in existence. So we're going to take a little break, play some delightful music, and then talk about the 3DS and its many, many wonderful iterations. You have saved your low scores. I'm very worried.
Yeah, I told you were going to disagree with my
my
bottoms.
We'll get there. Gotta take another sip of this Diet Dr. Pepper.
Tastes like cough syrup.
Diet Dr. Pepper?
Well, Dr. Pepper in general.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah,
Mr. Pibb's far
you're a
superior.
Mr. Pibb fan.
Yeah.
Pibb Extra and Pibb Zero. Welcome back. And here we are for the... Oh man, I want to say that we're like on the downhill, but we're going like up the hill because this is where things get treacherous. The 3DS was a iteration nightmare. It was like a whirling dervish of revisions for one reason or another. I had an original 3DS. I was an ambassador. Look at me, I'm special. Derek, I don't think... Were you an ambassador?
I was.
Oh, you were. Yeah, it's okay. You got in right at the edge, didn't you?
Ocarina of Time's 3D was what got me.
Okay.
So
I had a launch model, and that is... It's okay. That is some okay hardware. It was ambitious, had the stereoscopic 3D, which worked sometimes. It had this really awful finish, glossy finish, that meant you had fingerprints all over that thing immediately when you touched it. And it had a charging dock, which was kind of cool.
yes.
But when they revised it, they got rid of the dock.
Yes, thankfully.
Unless you were a Club Nintendo member, and then thankfully, I mean, you could charge it either way. The dock was just cool.
I didn't like using the dock.
Whatever. Well, Club Nintendo members got one for this next revision, which was the 3DS XL, which took the 3DS and made it bigger. Also made it less smudgy.
Yeah, talk about a no frills upgrade. It really is just like we're taking the 3DS and we're making it big.
Yeah, but at the same time, pretty solid.
Yeah, it's solid. I enjoy it. I have to knock it down a peg because I think the later 3DS models are better. But I think, if you want like a 3DS but bigger, this is a great system.
Yeah, I have fond memories of this because this is one of my only systems I was ever able to see prior to launch when I was a muckraking journalist in the old days. And I went to Chicago to see the Wii U before it came out. And off in the corner, they were like, hey, you want to see the 3DS too? I was like, oh, man, do I? And I played Luigi's Mansion, and there was a bug, and it was broken. And the guy said, oh, it's in progress. And I said, yeah, I bet it is. And the real game wasn't that good, so how in progress was it, really? But anyways, I don't know. The XL for me is it's fine.
It's like the most boring of
Yeah,
the
it's
revisions.
it's boring. It really is much better than the original 3DS.
Yeah, I traded in my 3DS to get an XL to play Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Yeah, that's a
So
good choice. That's a good port.
yeah, and I enjoyed my time with the XL. I kept it until the new 3DS XL. So obviously at this point I have abandoned I'm sticking with the originals. So
Yes, this was well. The 3DS did that to all of us. I actually owned all but one of these, shamefully.
uh, yes, I did not own a 2DS,
Okay,
but
well, we'll talk about it.
yeah,
So I really did like it. To me, this is like such a comfortable device. Um, they used a different finish that made it less smudgy. It feels a little cheaper than the original 3DS for that reason, but I really didn't care because when I was playing games, it just felt really good in my hands.
yeah, it's solid. It's
So
like a better version of a good system.
yeah, I also would say the start and select buttons on this thing terrible. You know what
Yeah,
I'm talking about?
they're rough. I
They're
absolutely know they're
so
rough,
so hard to press.
and that would continue into the new 3DS also.
They do
It's
not.
rough.
Does it?
I don't remember them being good.
I need to look at those pictures then, because we have different memories. But XL for me, solid like middle of the pack thing. That is a
Same.
7.
You had a 5, so
Yeah.
kind of close.
Yeah, that's very middle of the pack. You know, no frills like you said. It's the
That's boring.
It is.
I only knocked it for being boring.
It is the Quaker of Nintendo revisions.
Uh, to use a Futurama joke, it's the WNBA of portables. You know, it's really
All
good
fundamentals.
Yeah.
Just no flash, no razzle dazzle.
No flash. No razzmatazz.
And if you want even less flash than the 3DS XL, then the 2DS is the platform for you. The 2DS is a doorstop that has 2 screens on it.
It is ugly.
So it is so disgustingly ugly.
The big perk for it is affordability. I think when it came out at $99.99.
I think it might have even been less, like $80.
You can currently buy one for $49.99, and you can hack it, and you can play every 3DS game you want to. So that is a big plus. However, my big qualm with the 2DS is that it abandons the gimmick of the 3DS. The whole thing was 3D. I know you don't necessarily need it for a lot of games, but I do not like when console revisions abandon the gimmick. So I hit it hard for that. Yep, you sure do.
I agree on this one because I actually kind of like the 3D. I don't know. I mean, it's a battery hog and everything, but it did work. Like it went in Ocarina of Time. I thought it was really cool to see that game.
But that was the whole selling point. The whole vision of the 3DS was 3D without the glasses.
Well, for me, it was more like here's a DS, but like with more power.
Well, I mean, look, I agree with that. I barely used it myself, but I believe in people sticking to their visions. Like, for as much as I shit on the Wii, it stuck with its vision the whole way through. Like, they put waggle and things.
Yes, for better.
There weren't any first-party games that required a classic controller.
I owned a 2DS for a brief time. Just because it was really cheap. So, easy to have.
Yes.
And, it is not pleasant to look at. It's not especially, convenient because its shape, it's it's not going to fit into any pockets. You'd have to carry it in a bag, which, as we've said, is not super portable. And to me, it looks like one of those. Have you ever seen the Kindle devices for kids?
Yes.
With the big ugly pastel colored borders.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what this is. It's it's a brick. It's made for
Yeah, it
children.
looks like a leapfrog.
Yeah, it's made for children to drop and throw and all that. It is so comfortable. And it's so weird that it is because it doesn't look like it would be, but it actually is very good in the hands. Good hand feel.
It just looks so ugly.
Oh yeah, but it's just it is a sight to behold, which is why I gave it a 3.
Gave it a 1.
That's your 1. Okay, that makes sense to me. I get it, but I had a little more fondness for it because I had it, and I I didn't hate it. I just eventually was like, I like
But
3D.
but I will say, like, if you want an entry point to this 3DS, you can do a lot worse. I mean, $49.99, you can get it to you today. That's a pretty good price for a system with as many good games as the 3DS. So
Yeah, it had its place, and I think my favorite memory of the 2DS is walking around Chicago, and I saw a guy playing Pokemon Sun and Moon, I think, on a 2DS, and seeing a person walking, a human male adult walking with a 2DS just looked odd to me.
yeah, a little bit.
But it was like he clearly just bought it so he could have Pokemon Sun and Moon, and I respect that.
I do too.
Yeah, even though Sun and Moon were not awesome, but what do you want? The 3DS was a bad time for Pokemon.
I thought Pokemon Sun was just fine. Thank
It's
you.
fine, but I mean, come on.
I think it's better than Sword and Shield.
Eh,
Better than X and Y.
Well, come
Better
on
than
now.
Diamond and Pearl.
Everything's better than X and Y. I don't know about Diamond and Pearl. We'll see. We'll see when the remake comes out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah. So now on to my favorite. I love the new 3DS and the new
I
3DS
do too.
XL. This is, to me, the one time in their history that Nintendo actually designed a flawless piece of hardware.
Yeah, I think the new 3DS XL is perfect.
It is so good, I can't even picture using any other 3DS anymore. I think they really just nailed it. Like, the 3D was improved because they made it so that when you held it, you didn't have to, like, look directly at it. You could adjust your line of sight. Super stable 3D, I think is what they called it.
Yeah, you didn't need to, like, get your neck all sore, like, trying to keep it steady.
No, so it made the 3D way better.
Oh, yes.
It felt like $1 million. Like, it actually felt like a premium device.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like, it felt like it could hang with the Vita, even though it couldn't graphically.
it had those colorful buttons. Like, the face buttons had color on them, which was fun.
Yeah, they were like the Super Famicom style.
It came in some really cool colors. The red was really nice looking. The black was also pretty nice looking. I mean, this was just a souped up 3DS, but man, it just was the absolute best way, no questions asked,
No,
to
the
play
problem
all 3DS games.
the problem is there are like 3 exclusive games for it.
Yes, it is useless.
Yes, Xenoblade Chronicles, which is not the way to play that game portably. You want to play that either on the Wii or the Switch. And Binding of Isaac.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
I think Minecraft might have been.
Oh, it
New
probably
3DS
was.
exclusive.
Oh, yeah, Super Nintendo was also 3DS
Yes,
XL, a new
which-
3DS exclusive.
Questionable.
Yeah, questionable.
Yeah.
But I am a big fan of this 3DS. It brought expandable memory via micro SDs, so you could load it with like eShop games, and if you hack it, you can put pretty much everything you want on there. It's a lovely system.
And it is. I mean, I just remember it being so comfortable. Like I was.
It is.
It was a expensive purchase, and I remember kind of feeling hesitant when I first bought it. But then the moment I opened it and held it, I was like, wow, this is just like this is the way to go. Like for a while that was my favorite platform because it was just so nice to hold.
Yes. Unfortunately for the new 3DS XL, I feel like the Switch just did everything it does and does it way better.
Yeah,
So-
it ate its lunch.
So when the Switch came out, I was like, I don't want 3DS anymore. No more games for that. All Switch games.
Yeah.
But while there was no Switch, the 3DS ruled.
Can we talk about the nub on the 3DS XL, the new 3DS XL?
Yeah, it sucks.
Did it? was there a game that used it? Like I
Smash
remember,
Brothers.
Okay, for C smashes and
Yes.
Majora's Mask, I think you could do stuff with the camera.
There was a couple things that used it, but I don't
Could
remember
you use it
what.
like the Circle Pad Pro? Did it like
No,
sub
I
in
don't
for the
think
Circle Pad
I
Pro?
don't think Kid Icarus had support for that. Yeah, I don't think. I don't know. I don't
That
think
was a
so.
weird thing to throw on there.
Yeah, it was like a half measure.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
I barely used it. It's very unpleasant to touch.
It did have improved specs, so some games just ran better. Like there was Hyrule Warriors is the famous one. It came out after the new 3DS XL launched, but you could play it on both. but it was so unplayable on the original 3DS. You basically had to have a new 3DS to get anything.
Most games don't take advantage of this, but if you homebrew it, you can turn it on, and there are improvements in mini games, I believe, including Snake Eater.
It's weird that they kind of touted it when they revealed it.
Yeah, I know, it's strange.
So,
it must be like trying to make 3DS owners not feel ripped off thing. I don't know.
Yes, but who cares about them?
I agree.
So I gave this an 11. Nice. This was my favorite. I was actually expecting to disagree on this. I'm glad we can see eye to eye that is absolutely their best hardware they ever released.
Yes, and because of that, I'm a lot more friendly towards the next one than I was towards its predecessor.
Yes. So the 2DS XL is weird. There's not much to say about it. It's like the new 3DS XL, except for it does not have 3D support. But it does everything a new 3DS XL does.
Including play Super Nintendo games.
Right, play Super Nintendo games, has that second nub, has a pretty similar design, a little different. I kind of like the way it looks. I always wanted one of these too. I thought they were pretty nice, but
yes.
I think the new 3DS XL itself is the way to go. I don't have much to say about the new 2DS XL. It's it's the same thing, but less.
I feel slightly hypocritical because, I'm kind of giving credit to a system that abandoned its gimmick, but I feel at the time this released, that gimmick was well dead.
Well, the system was dead by the time this released.
Yeah,
because this released the same year. Maybe not the same. Actually, I think this did release the same year as the Switch.
Oh well, then, yeah. I just looked at it. This is like
this released after the Switch.
Okay, well then, that takes that complaint away. Because I look at this as like a cheaper way to get the new 3DS perks if you don't care about 3D. But I mean, not much you can really add to that.
Yeah, this launched alongside Samus Returns, I believe. And
oh wow,
other
that was after
3DS
the Switch came
games that should have been on the Switch.
I believe the people were mad the new 3DS, when the new 3DS XL came out, people were upset because the smaller version wasn't available. So I think that was the perk of this one, is that they also released the slim new 3DS along with it. I might be wrong on that.
The new 3DS came out in a few different. It came out with an Animal Crossing, I think Happy Home Designer. You could get it with that, and there might have been one other way, but yeah, that was like a Japan thing. They did that for Japan, but they figured us Americans would only want the big boy.
Well, they were right on my case. I had no interest in the little one, but I also think this is like a nice, if you want the new 3DS exclusive, all two of them, then the new 2DS XL is for you. If you don't want to pay extra money,
it's such a middle of the road thing because it is just not exciting because the 3DS
I probably
XL
overrated it a little
it.
bit.
I gave it a 6.
I gave it an 8. I think it is carried heavily by its big brother.
I'm surprised, but yeah, I agree. Its big brother, so to speak, is unimpeachable.
I think that's why I ranked it so high, is because of my fondness for the XL.
Fair. And I think it is it's a nice device. It's just a little obsolete by the fact that it came out after the Switch, which is just crazy. Just Nintendo, what are you doing?
Yes, it is really silly to do that.
What are you doing? So that brought the 3DS era to an end. A little bit of a whimper because it kind of ended as the new platform emerged, the Switch, which just immediately made the 3DS seem obsolete. Nintendo always does this thing where they drag their feet on their new platforms and go, oh, we're still going to support the Wii or the DS or the Game Boy Advance or whatever it is. And they're always lying. But with the 3DS, it was like, oh, we're going to support the 3DS, but everybody's like, who cares? We have the Switch. We don't.
Well, it was frustrating because, you had Pokemon Sun and Moon come out around then.
Right. It was
and also Samus Returns, which should have been a Switch game.
WarioWare Gold.
Yeah. Oh, Mario 100, which finally is being righted. But
yeah. So the Switch took over, and the Switch itself is a handheld device, so it's going to fit into this list. The Switch, is one of a kind. It's maybe the best piece of hardware Nintendo has ever created.
I love the
Switch. In terms of
Switch.
software,
Yes.
it's got its problems. The Joy-Con controllers are not everybody's favorite. Pretty notorious for drifting, though I've never had this experience.
Battery life is a little rough.
Yeah, they're very small controllers when you hold them.
Pro controller is excellent, but that's
Pro
not part of
controller
this.
is a beaut. I do like that. So the Switch did get a revision 2 years into its life in 2019 with the Switch Lite, which is a Switch that is smaller. It's all contained, so you cannot take the little Joy-Cons off. They are attached to the device, and you cannot dock it. So it is a Switch that cannot switch, which I know is where Derek is going to tell me that this is a bad device, and I'll just allow him to say his filthy lies. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, I can't say it's a bad device because I quite enjoy the Switch. But that said, the whole gimmick, the reason it is called the Switch is because you can switch between handheld and console. If you take out the ability to make it a home console, it's no longer the Switch. It's like a new 4DS or something. I don't know. But it's just a different system. Again, like, we're not counting a library. So the way I look at the Switch Lite is like you take a Switch and you rip out its guts. It's like it'd be different if you could eventually upgrade it. Like if you bought a dock and placed it on it, it would work. But it doesn't. And if you could take the Joy-Cons off and you could use other input devices, but you can't do that either. So it feels like a more limited version for not enough less to convince me it's worth it, because you can buy it's $100 less, which is fair, but to gut it like that, it would have to be half price at best for me to see the value in it. So while I will say again, the library is good, and I understand why people want one if they don't care about playing on a television. But to me, the whole gimmick of the Switch is switching, and this tears it up, so I can't get behind it.
The Switch's gimmick is switching, but when you switch it to the TV, it's not always the best experience. To me, the Switch is absolutely, with only a very few exceptions, better in portable mode. So to me, the stripping out the TV is only a problem for multiplayer instances, which is why I have two Switches.
Yes, you're an insane person.
So I guess in that way you could say the Switch Lite must not be that amazing, because I have to own both to make my life complete. But if I didn't have a wife who plays Switch games with me, and friends who every once in a while will deign to come over and play something like Smash Brothers with me, I would only have the Switch Lite, because the Switch Lite is, as far as hardware goes, better in so many ways. First, comfort. I mean, it is so much more comfortable because it's just a lot lighter than the original Switch. It feels so much better, especially in my hands, which are very small and dainty, so I get it if it's not for you. The screen is smaller, which I think a lot of people look at as maybe a problem. But when you think about the resolution that a lot of Switch games play at, that small screen size actually works to the benefit of a lot of those Switch games. I have found a lot of Switch games to just look better on that screen because they're not as blown up, and so you can't see a lot of the dirty details. I'm thinking about games like Pikmin 3 Deluxe, which is just, I think objectively speaking, kind of an ugly graphical port from the Wii U, but on the Switch Lite, honestly, I don't notice anything. It looks great to me.
Yeah, it's just cool being able to play that handheld.
And it brought back colors, because for so many years, Nintendo has shied away from doing lots of exciting colors. Like, they did a few with the 3DS. Like, the 3DS XL had a lot of just, like, special editions. Not really colors. Like, a lot of Monster Hunter systems, and they had a Zelda Anniversary one that everyone remembers and likes.
Majora's Mask. They had Pokemon X and Y.
Yeah, they had a lot
editions.
of special. They had a lot of special editions, but like in terms of like pure colors, there weren't as many of those. You have to go back to the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Advance SP, the 64 for Nintendo to just go, and the GameCube to ball out with colors. And the Switch Lite has colors. I mean, you've got the teal, which is what I have, the light blue. You got the Pikachu yellow, you've got the black, you've got the coral pink. They just added a deep blue, which I'm super angry about because if that was out at launch, I definitely would have bought that one instead of the teal blue. But whatever. I think it is a sexy little device.
Looks okay.
Baby.
Yeah.
I was trying to do Austin Powers. Oh, behave.
But I do think some games do play better on the television. Smash Brothers, you mentioned, plays better on TV. Monster Hunter Rise plays better on television.
Yeah. I do wish that the Switch Lite could dock. I mean, I know I get from a business standpoint why it doesn't, because if you release the Switch Lite for less and then allowed people to buy a dock to port it to the screen, then the question would be, why would you ever buy the other one?
Charge more for the dock.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
if the Switch Lite costs $200, charge $100 for the dock, and then
it would be the same price as the original Switch.
Well, yes, that way it's like a step between. Like, you know, you have.
Well, then there'd be no reason to have the original Switch.
Well, yeah.
Except for the Joy-Cons.
I'm saying like, if you that way is there's an option. Like, if you don't want to jump all in on the Switch stuff. That way you can so maybe like $150 for the thing. I don't know, but that way it could be like the fact it's not even an option bugs me.
Yeah, I know. I understand that, and I understand that's why a lot of people immediately noped out on the Switch Lite. I get it, but
I look at it as more of like a casual device, like something like
kind of
for people that just want to play Animal Crossing 20 minutes at a time.
I mean, it is great for that. It is great for that. It is great for portable play, which makes sense because it's all you can do with it. It is wonderful for laying down on the couch and playing some Mario Sunshine, which is what I've been doing lately.
Yeah, but before they added online play, Super Mario Party useless on there.
Super Mario Party is still useless because you cannot play that on a Switch Lite.
Oh,
that's why they're releasing Mario Party Superstars.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And that's still better in person, so I would still say the ideal way is to play that on the TV.
Listen, man, if you had two Switches, you'd understand.
I do not. I'm not that crazy.
It's like my main Switch is my Switch Lite, and then I have the other one for every once on special occasions.
I've had my launch Switch since the day it came out.
I mean, my Switch is a little bit more recent than launch, but I still have the
mine's in rough
Splatoon
shape.
2 Switch that I bought.
Mine's in rough shape.
Man, mine is
tough,
too.
Tough.
Those are not.
Those are not as sturdy as the old ones.
Yeah, is your kickstand broken?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, mine just looks dirty. I think it.
And I don't like that the kickstand is broken because it hides the memory stick.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
Those OG Switches are very easily dirtied.
Oh yeah, mine's a mess.
The Switch Lite is not. It does a good job hiding its mess. Like
it's got a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah.
But you know what? My most played game on it is the Switch game. It's not Pokemon Conquest like it was for the 3DS. So,
yeah.
So
I think my most played 3DS game was Pokemon White. So.
So we're in the same boat. DS games.
I thought you were saying the 3DS was great.
I was, but I love Pokemon Conquest. What do you want from me?
Yeah, you do love Pokemon Conquest.
And my second most played was Smash Brothers.
So I give the Switch Lite a 9. I love the Switch Lite.
I gave it a 2.
Yikes.
Sorry.
That's gonna really skew the curve there. I don't really agree with how this is gonna shake out, but whatever.
Well, I gave number 1.
It's subjective rankings. That's only so much I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love the Switch Lite.
I told you weren't gonna agree with that.
Yeah, it's fine. No, I kind of knew going in that you were gonna say something about the Switch Lite because you've said many times that you don't like the Switch Lite, and I get it. But I just can't. It's one of the only devices that I've ever. The Switch is the only thing I've ever had 2 of at once because I just saw this one and I said I had to have it. It just seems so much.
I think it looks cool. It absolutely looks cool, but I just like being able to plop it in a TV, and it's so quick for me. Like it's like seconds.
Well, it is quick. It is a quick thing.
So now, if it took like 20 seconds to do, I would be more open to your cause. But it's much shorter than that.
Yeah. Well, that brings us through Nintendo's sordid history of portable revisions. And so I'm going to take a moment here to list them in reverse order. So the best portable, according to our objective rankings, with a score of 22 points, is the new 3DS and new 3DS XL.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because we both gave it an 11.
Yeah, that's perfect hand held.
Yeah, right on the heels of that, the Game Boy Advance SP with 19 points. Go figure. Just below that, the DS
that's
Lite.
another solid one.
Yeah, just below that, the DS Lite at 18.
Yeah, I think it's because we flopped positions on those two.
I think so.
They were right there.
Yeah, the new 2DS XL, surprisingly, would be next with 14
because they overrated
points.
it.
Yeah. The ho-hum 3DS 3DS XL and the Game Boy Color are both next with a score of 12, followed by the Switch Lite with 11 points.
Suck on that.
Yeah, I know. Then we get into the dregs. The Game Boy Micro and Game Boy Pocket, the little bite-sized consoles, both tie with a score of 7.
Because you underrated the Game Boy Micro.
I guess. The DSi and XL score 6 points. And in very last place, the little engine that couldn't. The 2DS, the doorstop that was, the worst portable revision. I don't agree with that, but hey, that's objective. It's objective, so there's only so much I can do at it.
Yeah, well, you gave it a 2 because its total is 3, so you're not that far off, mister.
I gave it a 3.
Well, it has 3 total points, it says right here.
Oh, what'd you give it?
So 1.
Oh, okay, well, it's last with 4 points. Sorry. I apparently didn't listen to you, and I just gave it my score.
Clearly.
Not that it mattered, because it scored
well,
a
it got
4
last anyway.
Yeah. So, that's there you have it. The best ever new 3DS XL, the worst ever the 2DS. The 3DS, the king and plebeian of Nintendo's portable history.
Yeah, it's very interesting that the best and worst are the same family, technically.
Well, it's because they went just bananas with that system. They just put everything on the table, and some of it was great, and some of it was less great. It's just how it works out.
That's the way the cookie crumbles, I'm afraid.
So I think the question everybody would ask at this point is, Derek, if we had to put the PSP Go anywhere on this list, where would it be?
Well, I'm going to give it points for being ahead of its time. Because I think if the PSP Go were to come out now, it would be a lot more popular. Because it would be at a lower price point than the Vita, which I assume would be like a Vita Go. Because I think the PS5 digital's selling decently. Like all PS5s are. So I think it is insane that like Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core were not on it. But I'd say probably middle of the road.
They released a digital-only platform in a time before their digital platform had been finalized.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, Microsoft did this with the Xbox One S, or One S All Digital Edition, but they had an infrastructure at that point. They had Game Pass. Like, it made sense. The PSP Go, that was a stretch. Like, it was cool.
It was
like,
too early.
Yeah.
It's like the Xbox One being online, always online originally.
It had an interesting design. It looked like one of those Sidewinder phones.
Yeah.
I did not think it was very comfortable because I played one in a Best Buy. And you could not play any of the games that people wanted to play on it because it came out near the end of the PSP.
But you could play Loco Roco.
You could play Loco Roco. You could play Rock Band Unplugged. I mean, what else could you want?
You played Luminous. Most overrated puzzle game of all time.
Yeah, I'm more of a Meteos person myself.
Sakurai Shill.
I am a Sakurai Shill. He hasn't steered me wrong yet.
But I would say I would have it in the 6 or 7 range. It's or 5, 6, 7 sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I would put it around the Game Boy Micro and Pocket as more of a weird novelty that I personally would never want to own because it just seems useless.
Now let me tell you one that would rank below the 2DS.
Brother.
That would be the shitty Screen Vita.
The one that doesn't have an OLED screen.
Yes, because it's a revision that's worse than the original.
Yeah, what was the deal with the OLED? Was it did people
It's
have
just
problems with the OLED?
expensive.
Oh,
I think it made the price higher than it should be.
yeah, that original Vita is one of the. I mean, if that was on this list, that'd be pretty high because
That's a great little system,
in
huh?
terms of pure hardware, it's hard to get better than the Vita. It did have a lot of stupid features on it, like the back touchscreen, but hey.
Or 3G.
Yeah, but that OLED screen. The
It's
first
beautiful.
time I played that, I just thought it was the future. I think it looks better than the Switch screen.
I agree. It does.
Yeah, I mean, I think Uncharted Golden
It
Abyss
is
looks better than any Switch game.
It's the ideal way to play PS1 games.
For now.
Well, for now, yeah.
And the best way to play Persona 4.
And 3.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Steam is the best way to play Persona 4.
You and 1 million other people.
Yeah, hey, congratulations.
They'll never release it for the Switch.
They should.
Because they hate money.
That would like double in sales overnight if they did that.
God, it's so ridiculous. That press release is so angering.
I know.
Can you imagine?
Well, I think Sega bullied them into doing it. I don't think they wanted to do it.
No, we don't want to upset Sony-kun.
Well, they were like, well, no one's going to buy on PC. They all pirate there.
And then they did.
Well, they did pirate, but they also bought it.
Yes.
God. Maybe one day.
Well, Derek, thanks for joining me for your birthday.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
For your birthday, I bought you your favorite portable device. I bought you a 2DS.
Oh, sweet.
That was what this was all about. I was just trying to see
broke
what you
the bank.
I was trying to see what you hated the most, and then I bought it for you.
I bought you that with I don't know what's a crappy 3DS game.
Kirby Mass Attack.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
That was a
You can get all the
DS game.
You can get all the Kirby fans. Oh, Squeak Squad's the worst Kirby game.
Yes.
You're gonna go that route.
I agree.
Kirby actually did well in 3DS with
Kirby. It is the strangest thing that I have qualms with a lot of the 3DS games, but if I were to pick one first party that I thought just knocked it out of the park, it would be Kirby, of all things.
It would be.
Which is weird because I think Kirby is like basically so boring now that I have it on like auto ignore.
You're not allowed to criticize Kirby online.
It's a shame that I have one of my all-time favorite franchises on just permanent ignore because they refuse to do anything remotely interesting with it anymore.
The Dolph Ziggler treatment.
Yeah, or the Ubisoft treatment, the Far Cry treatment.
Ubisoft 3, yeah.
Yeah, I will not ever care about Far Cry, and nobody will make me. Dang it. So, Derek, thanks for joining me. I hope you have fun with your 2DS.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope you have fun with your 2DS and this copy of Golden Age Dark Dawn, which I'm sliding under the table towards you.
Golden Sun Dark Dawn.
Yeah, I spat on it for you.
Thank you.
So it'll slide into the card slot real
Thank
easy.
you. I'm glad it's not backwards compatible, so you couldn't sneak me Lunar Dragon Song.
Oh, well, wait. Yeah, I worked with DS games. That's a DS game. It is backwards compatible.
This 3DS is... Oh, yeah, I guess it is, huh?
Yeah, so it looks like
damn.
you're playing Lunar Dragon Song, buddy.
No!
You can't even choose who to attack.
Oh, man.
You're at the mercy of the CPU.
It's disasterific.
Oh, God. Well, thank you for joining us for this trip down memory lane. If you see a Game Boy Advance on the street, wish it happy birthday. If you see Derek on the street, wish him a happy birthday. And until then, I'll see you on the streets for your birthday. See you later.
Bye.
The new Nintendo 3DS XL system. What makes it new? For one, the C-Stick.